So I'm just going to give one more second for folks to get in and then we'll get rolling. I apologize for the delay. We encountered a little tech issue. Thank you for your patience. Let me wait just 1 second before we get going. All right. So thank you everyone for joining us. We're super happy to have you here with us for MTSS Fest 2021. First, I would like to thank our host and sponsors, Northwest PBIS, Kaiser Permanente, and the Office of Superintendent of Public Instruction. My name is Tori Hazelton, and I am the MTSS Regional Implementation Coordinator from the Educational Service District 121, or PSESD. I will be your host for the session. So please feel free to share questions in the chat at the bottom of your screen throughout the presentation, and we will try to answer as many as we can. And now it is my honor to welcome Jessica Swain-Bradway to virtual MTSS Fest. She is from Northwest PBIS, and she will be speaking today on high leverage classroom practices. So let's get started. Jessica, I'm going to pass the screen sharing off to you.
You, and you will need to enable chat. It is disabled. If someone can take care of that for us. Thank you so much. Okay, let me share my screen. See if I can.
That chat
should be able to see. Do you see a beautiful landscape with a tree in the middle there? Great. Things are working so smoothly right now. Let me see if I can do.
I see it.
Okay, good. Thank you. Here we go. Can someone give me a verbal yes if you can see my slide deck?
Yes.
Excellent, thank you. So when I'm in a full screen, I can't see your wonderful faces. So I may pop in and out as we go through because I love to see real live people. Thank you for joining me today. And thank you for being part of the MTSS Fest. The OSPI team does a really great job of organizing this every year. And thanks to Cindy and Tori for being patient this morning. We had a little tech issue getting started, but they did a great job. So we're going to talk about high leverage classroom practices, otherwise known as creating a culturally responsive learning environment through rigorous instruction. So a very big title today. And I'd like for folks to just take a few seconds here, get comfy, take some deep breaths, and I'm going to invite you to think about people, events, things in your life for which you are grateful. We're just going to take a deep breath and sit in this a little bit before we move on. Okay, excellent. So I have a lot of slides. I'm going to throw them in the chat pod. I have a PDF. I can do that in just a second here. I wanted to give us a little bit of background in why. It turns out that when we talk about equity in schools, one of the biggest issues we are dealing with at that tier 1 foundational level in our multi-tiered systems is that racial and ethnic disparities are commonly called an achievement gap, but this is a misnomer because this implies that the challenge lies within the student. If we're going to be truly invested in equity, we have to attend to our behaviors as instructors, as teachers and administrators. On-site observations, thousands of observations of teacher behavior shows that it is a lack of access or lack of the teacher using those best practices towards our Black and Brown students in particular that causes that divide. That's what's going on. So folks, kids don't come into the school, no, they're just not good learners. We create the context for learning, and that's at the heart of the work that we do. We have 4 main strategies that I'm going to talk about today, and they come from a brief by Dr. Aaron Shapiro and colleagues at the University of Oregon. And these are the highest leverage practices we have in the learning environment. Meaning that Jody, I'm not sure what to tell you if you can't see the slides. I'm going to see if Tori and Cindy can help you problem solve with that there, but thank you for letting us know. These are the highest leverage practices we have in instruction, in academics and in social instruction. And they have this longevity of evidence that they work. They build strategies, they build fluency quickly. And Dr. Erica McDowell, she is with the Wildflower Schools and formerly of the Philadelphia School District. She reminds us that the most powerful toolkit that we have in our toolkit is ourselves. It's our behaviors. So if we are personally ensuring each kiddo has equitable access, we know these strategies, we're intentional with how we self-assess and we use them. And if we are at that district level, that administrative level, we are intentional about building the strategies, the professional development, the supports, the systems pieces, because these are part of a complete district-wide approach to being culturally responsive. So responding and being aware of the cultures in our environment and elevating those so it isn't one culture, right? And being equitable. So we're paying attention to how we're distributing our attention. And so that we have their policies, we have accountability, we have data for accountability. I don't mean accountability in a scary way. I mean, how do we hold ourselves warmly, warmly accountable? Like say, how can we be warmly accountable? So the intentional use of these best practices, and within those best practices, we identify vulnerable decision points. When are we least likely to use best practices and more likely to lean on implicit bias? And then neutralizing routines that allow us to kind of get recentered and focus on using best practices. Some big ideas of 3 quick slides of big ideas. And some of these you are very familiar with already, and they're worth repeating. Is that these strategies, those 4 strategies that we're going to talk about, they apply to every area of skill building we would like to see in our staff and our kids. Staff, family, kids, it applies to everyone. So if we're talking about kindness or self-care, we're talking about wellness. That's where we're directing some of our ESSER funds, some of our CARES money. If we're directing it towards wellness and self-care, we can use those strategies. If we want to teach kids how to be astronauts, we can do that. So we can use these strategies, and we use them all the way up the tier of support. So all the way at that tier 3 level where we're doing highly intense individualized strategies, we are in one form or another doing these things. We're being explicit, we're building background knowledge, increasing opportunities to respond, and we're providing performance feedback. We dose up, depending on how much more intensely people need support, and we fade, right? My friend Susan Barrett likes to say, this is not Hotel California. We can check out. So we want to fade the strategies, and we plan for fading from the very beginning. And what's really relevant to our time together in the next little bit here is that we are intentional, we are aware. How much do we use these strategies? The vulnerable decision points, neutralizing routines come from University of Oregon research that originated there. I'm going to put them in the chat pod for you if I can make it work. Okay. And they are vulnerable decision points are the points in time, particularly related to a discipline decision where we are least likely to default to teaching. We are least likely to use evidence-based practices, and we are more likely to lean on implicit bias. And remember, implicit bias is what we're not aware of. It is unintentional, and it is fed by stereotypes and conditioning and things that we see and hear. And when we're aware of when we do and don't use best practices, we can really boost the rigor of our instruction, thereby helping kids get really great at self-care, at being an astronaut, at trigonometry, at Spanish, at basic reading, right? We can do that. So let's get in. So these 4 strategies here are also, just so folks, just to make that nod here, is that they are responsive, they're trauma responsive. We're setting kids up for success. So we're creating a safe, predictable, and positive environment. We default to reteaching. We use these strategies to develop Self-regulation to help kids develop self-regulation. Remember, I said you can build fluency in any skills. So we want to teach kids how to be aware of their feelings. During our keynote this morning, Karen gave a great example, very simple awareness activity of the colors and the feelings and people identifying their feelings, right? We were practicing. And trauma responsive is also, that environment is also heavily relationship focused on positive relationships. And we can plan for, we can teach, we can practice relationship building. And when we know our kiddos, we can build relationships in a way that is congruent with their culture, their norms, instead of forcing our own on our kiddos. Now for our systems, a few slides just as a nod to systems, these adult behaviors must show up across all the systems aspects, the policies, the documents, the planning within our schools and our districts. They're not by chance. So again, we're going to lean heavily on the implementation science, like Karen and Corey reminded us, and not rely on that heroes model. So these things show up in our classroom teaching matrix, right? Let me pop to this example here that I borrowed from a school and then modified a little bit, is in our teachers' conditions for learning. This came from a school in Illinois. They added this teacher's role in the matrix. And within this matrix, I've embedded some of these best practices, right? So specific written feedback. This is my decision rule. If a kiddo is less than 75% mastery, then we're going to provide additional practice that actually should be higher here, right? So we have teach, practice, and reinforce, have a plan. We can embed our best practices into the documents for teachers as well as for kiddos, right? It also should show up in our teacher behavior flow chart. Remember, managing, supporting learning and behavior is reliant on the conditions we create as educators. We're creating that environment. And sometimes it's hard to conceptualize this idea, like how do I envision this idea of the environment shapes my behavior? Because a lot of us grow up with you just do it because you're supposed to, right? Like lots of yelling for that, yelling at me because I didn't do it because I was supposed to. It's very surprising to some of you who know me. So I want you to think of, and this is a good thing you can take to your teams or your staff when people say, I shouldn't have to because they're supposed to do it. I like to think about the context shapes my behavior, and this flow chart is the teacher behaviors that can help shape behavior. I use the analogy of going to Costco. So Costco can be challenging. And we have, if you were going to go to Costco, say the weekend before Thanksgiving, your experience and your feelings about being in Costco would be substantially different than if you went to Costco, say, this afternoon, Thursday afternoon in the middle of August, right? So the context, the number of people, how crowded it is, if your favorite gluten-free bread is available, right? Those things shape your behavior. And it's really important within our multi-tiered systems for us to put that on the table as staff and say, the practices that we use or don't use, the practices that are in the way of doing this work, this good work here of explicit instruction, background knowledge, opportunities to respond, and performance feedback. When we're not adhering to these best practices, and we're letting other things get in the way, we are failing to create that optimal environment. I know Tori is on here and she does a great deal of work supporting mental health and wellness. And really, what she'll tell us is that the work we want to do at that highest level of support for kiddos and adults who are really impacted by trauma, by stress, by mental health disorders, that all of that links very clearly to this nurturing foundation. And I have a kiddo who has a 504 plan, and they have allowed me to share about them. And there's nothing my kid needs that doesn't directly link and start with that environment, that tier 1 environment in the classroom, the shaming or the lack of shaming, right? The relationship building or the lack of relationship building, that default to instruction. Those are crucial. So we all will behave differently based on the environment in which we're in. And that is the basis of our multi-tiered systems of support. We're going to shape that environment. So I'm going to take a minute. I'm going to stop and do a little chat check-in. I would love for folks to share. Is there anything new, different, aha, or even a yeah, but, like, yeah, but, Jessica, that's not cool, that you've heard in the first few minutes here? I'm going to go on pause. I'm going to drink a little bubbly and give you some think time. So give me an aha, yeah, but, that was great, I relate to, before we move on to our strategies. Excellent. Thank you, thank you. Yes, Kevin, PSYOP strategies. Yes, I hear connections to SEL, vulnerable decision points. Robbie, the teacher flow chart, I'll find a copy for you. I get it from Midwest PBIS Network. That's my old team. And actually, there's a hyperlink to that site at the very end, and I can plot that in the chat as well. Excellent. Very good. Thank you all. I'm so glad to see. I just pulled up my participant pod. I can see a lot of familiar names and then some new ones. Oh, hey, Elizabeth Brawley. Nice to see you. I don't see you. I just see your name. So thank you. Very good. These are great. Okay. Yeah. We take things personally. I take things personally as a mom and as a former high school self-contained teacher. I was called amazing names, bad words. And sometimes I took it personally and sometimes I was able to not. But these strategies here, the more we are aware of our use or lack of use, right, the better we're going to get at them. And so unfortunately, a lot of us don't learn these in our teacher certification programs, in our admin certifications, and our school psych programs. They aren't necessarily focused on these basics, right? But like some folks pointed out, Kevin had pointed out the connection to PSYOP strategies. So different strategies, or GLAD strategies, right? For different strategies we might use in English language learning supports. A lot of times in our work, I call it the old wine, new bottle analogy that came from a colleague at University of Oregon. A lot of the same strategies that we call different things and we try to do slightly different. And really, it's a lot of these. And this is what we're going to get really, really good at. My 9-year-old is trying really hard right now not to stick his face in the camera, but he really loves this. Okay. So there he is. It looks like, okay, so let's start with a little bit of building and priming background knowledge. So I have each strategy. There's a few questions that we can ask ourselves or ask our staff as we think about these strategies. And remember, they should be in our lesson plans. They should be observable in a classroom observation. We can work together as a MTSS or PBIS team to generate ideas for how to do this. We can have class agreements, school agreements, grade level agreements. But building and priming background knowledge, this is, we're working to create a foundational schema. How do we help give kids something to click this to in their brains, right? Connect it to, and do we understand their perspectives? And so a good example of this is the beach, right? So I'm gonna say the word beach, and I would like everyone, when I say beach, what comes to mind? Go ahead and put it in the chat pod. When I say the word beach, what do you think? I love it. Somebody wrote Mexico. I'm so with you. Relaxing sand. Yes. Okay. Ocean, peace. Wonderful. Now, when I say the words Oregon coast, what comes to mind? If anyone's been to the Oregon coast, it's windy, it's cold and rocky. Yeah. It's sandy. It's sandy. It's like cloudy. Yeah. Okay. See how different they are? Yeah. I'm from New Jersey. Technically, the coast is the beach, right? I'm from New Jersey. And the first time I went to the coast here, we've been here for 16 years. My kiddo and my kiddo was small. My oldest was small. We got put on our tank tops and our shorts and we drove to the coast. And then all of the pictures, our hair is like this, sideways, and we're going like this from the wind. So I thought beach, like Jersey Shore, sidewalk, boardwalk. So that's a silly example. But a lot of times when we're in that learning environment with our kiddos, we're not thinking about how to connect this, what's their perspective, so we can connect it to what is relevant to them. And what's also wonderful about this is that we're going to ask instead of assuming. This is one of those strategies that allows us to gain perspective and get to know our kids, as well as helping us make relevant instructional connections for them, relevant examples and non-examples. So this is relationship building and it's instructional. So it's a really wonderful high utility strategy. And I'm wondering, does anyone have building and or priming background knowledge or something similar? Do you know that it's something your teachers put in their lesson plans? Is it something you talk about at staff meetings? Is this something folks are talking about and doing in the classrooms? Sorry, it's very loud in my house. We are rebuilding various rooms right now. So here are some questions that folks can ask themselves, each other, to help with planning, lesson planning. Do you have a basic understanding of your kiddo's perspective? Have you taught previous concepts? And a lot of times, our academic curricula are organized in that spiral curriculum, but maybe not our social skills curriculum. Maybe we haven't done that much work, or we're teaching a particular behavior because there was a naughty thing that occurred and we're going to give a replacement behavior, but we thought about those related previous concepts and thinking about how you can make these concepts more relevant. And this priming background knowledge, this is a lot like sometimes when we think of pre-skills. What have we put in place to get help kiddos understand where we're coming from, what we're talking about? I really like that strategy. I think it's important. It's an important call out, and I'm appreciative that Dr. Chaparro put that in her brief. And the next thing this is kind of like, explicit instruction. But I have to say that when I observe classrooms, and I've done it a lot, I routinely see very imprecise teaching, which to me, some of us are precise, some of us are not. But to me, it speaks to sometimes there's a lack of planning. So we want to be very explicit and precise. This is important for errorless learning. So do I have any special educators in the audience? Give a hey, or yes in the chat if you're a special educator. Yes, my people. So when we're from a special ed perspective, a lot of us have been trained to something called errorless learning, where we set up the kiddos for success from the very beginning. And the more intense some of our kiddos' behavioral needs are, the more important this becomes. We have less wiggle room. But this is a great skill to think about and use in terms of other types of skills we want to teach and we want to build fluency for kiddos. So we want to be precise to allow kids to focus their cognitive energy on the content and not deciphering what we're saying. We want it to be very clearly articulated, very clear instructions, right? So if you've ever thought about, we do something in special ed called task analysis, when we're thinking about all the steps it might take to go from point A to point B to complete a skill. And a lot of us have learned it in terms of working with people with with moderate to severe cognitive disabilities or developmental disabilities. What are all the steps, for example, to make a peanut butter and jelly sandwich? If you think that clearly of every single step involved, that will allow you to be more precise. And this is something that teachers can give each other feedback on. not as precise, very precise, right? So we connect the information to prior knowledge because we know our kiddos. We establish and maintain clear learning goals. This is one of those things that's a great connection. When we have our learning goals or objectives, you know, we post them. Some of our schools have them posted on the Blackboard. What's the main idea? That is a great way to help us hone as a teachers and be precise. And we're going to model concepts and processes clearly, very clearly, right? We're going to model, lead, test, or I do, we do, you do. And Dr. Shapiro also reminds us that it's usually not I do, we do, you do. It's I do, we do, I do, we do, I do, we do, you do, we do, right? I'm going to do it. We're going to do it together. We're going to go back and forth. There's going to be that feedback. So we're going to be very instructive, very explicit. And that links to the idea of opportunities to respond. But before I get that, I'm going to give us another second for engagement for all of you. Okay, so one of the ways I've thought about how do we lead staff? How do we help with our, help ourselves practice? Essentially, how do we use these practices with our staff so they can build their skills? So one way I've seen is for teams to present unclear or ambiguous learning activities or instructions and have staff fix them, right? So this is a non-example. Give me an example. So I'm wondering, are there other ways you could lead staff through building fluency in explicit instruction? You can respond to that one, or you can make a leap here. What other aspects of support or what else in the school environment do you see a need to be explicit? So where else is there a connection between explicit instruction and what? There's something else we want to be explicit around. I'm purposefully vague at this time. I'm going to give folks a second to think on and respond to either one or two, or something completely different. That's fine. Yes. I like these. Explicit expectations in class, expected behavior and social skills. I like the reference to TikTok. Behavior settings in different schools, yes. Also, some of you are thinking and probably typing, when we create behavior intervention plans, when we observe for a functional assessment, right? So that was my excited face. So this explicitness in our teaching, in the skills that we're teaching kids, the academic skills and the social skills, is really a precursor for us as adults. When we're trying to support a kiddo with a problem behavior, oftentimes when I'm in schools and I get called in for like a super naughty behavior, folks are not describing the behavior in a way that allows me to problem solve. So explicitness is just like being precise, and explicit is just one of those skills we want to really hone in instruction, and whether or not that's academic or social, right? And Casey's right on here, aligning those beliefs and school-wide beliefs and making sure there's connections, right? So we know our kiddos, we know them, we can make those explicit connections for them to lead them to that next level of skill development, right? So there's a 1984 paper on generalization by Rob Horner where he talks, it's called Programming for Generalization. Generalization is not something we just do inherently as a learner. We program or we plan as teachers for people to generalize, right? For folks to generalize. we give examples and non-examples that allow us to hone what is the precise skill. Now think about how nuanced social skills are, right? Social skills can be very nuanced. We need lots of practice and lots of examples and non-examples, right? And Dr. Terry Scott reminds us that when we practice social skills, we should practice failing those social skills as well, right? Then we can be explicit about how to correct it. So questions to guide instruction for around being explicit is, did I model for students how to use each step of the task? And remember, when we grade papers or we look at performance, we can see those patterns. We're always looking for patterns because the patterns allow us to see where we may have been imprecise or have not made a relevant connection. Did I lead students through doing it on their own? Did I teach the students steps who were not successful on their own? There's a word. I don't know what that word is in there. But we default to reteach. This is where we default to reteaching. Reteach in small groups, reteach individually. There are no throwaway kids. It is never acceptable to say, well, I just didn't teach. I moved on because the rest of the class was there. Nope. We figure out how to go back and reteach. Because when we do that, we're essentially saying, it wasn't worth giving that kid the accurate medicine for that thing, right? Evidence-based practices are like the medicine for instruction. So we wouldn't say, that kid doesn't get an antibiotic. I just didn't have time. No, we go back and we do it. That's our job. And did I modify what I was doing? This is what I was talking about. Did I modify what I was doing? And this is important if you are a middle school or high school person. You have to modify what you're teaching. The success of the kiddos depends on your behavior. That's the thing you can control in the learning environment. And we cannot blame outside influences, right? Oh, that family, they don't value. Oh, no. We have a strong science behind our work, and we modify what we do to meet the needs of the learners in front of us. And remember, again, these things can show up and should show up in our lesson plans, in observations, in our PBS or MTSS Tier 1 plans. Wherever those things are documented, it's all aligned and it's all about the adult behavior. And this is one of my favorite adult behaviors is opportunities to respond. So I know my kiddos, I'm explicit and precise, and I create as many opportunities for kids to make their learning visible as needed to ensure that kids have fluency or adults have fluency, right? So we have deliberate planned invitations. Come and show me your learning. We make learning visible. This is a Hattie thing, right? John Hattie. And we dose up. We're structured more carefully when something is new, difficult, or when kiddos are stressed. When kiddos are stressed, when adults are stressed, we dose up, right? We give more opportunities to practice and provide feedback when learning is hard. That's what we do. It's kind of a no-brainer. If something's hard, we're going to have to practice more. But sometimes we get sidetracked, right? We get sidetracked by the things we're doing in the course of our day. So this is a definition I pulled from Midwest. See this little symbol up here on the left-hand side? That's because it came from Midwest. They're a stellar team. So we use multiple opportunities to respond. We use different types of opportunities to respond. And I have some examples in here for those of you who want to download this and take a look at it. I'm not going to walk through all of those. These are the types of strategies. We want to see a whole range of strategies. And sometimes what I'll do is I'll have a staff tell me all the ways they provide opportunities to respond. And we write it down on a board. And then we'll say, okay, so Jane, you are an absolute expert in this. I've seen you do it. It's great. So Jane, give us step-by-step. How do you do it? Right? We're going to build that knowledge from within. I know that I'm going to do air quotes. I'm like an expert. I have a PhD. And when I'm in schools and districts, I consistently see much better, more creative, wonderful ideas coming from staff on how to do these things. And a lot of times it's about expanding our toolkit and being willing to do more together, right? We're going to do more different types. So we have individual choral responses. That's really fun. I like to have adults do choral responding because I secretly, not secretly, want to be a kindergarten teacher when I retire. whiteboards, response cards. We can do these things now. We're doing them in virtually, right? We're doing them virtually. So Paulette, sorry. There is at the end, I'm going to pop some URLs in the chat pod that will take you to the resources for these strategies, because these are, depending on what grade level you teach, you may or may not have had training in them. A word about, we have guided notes. Guided notes are great. I do guided notes for grownups. I do. And when I taught graduate school at the U of O, I found that I had a lot of international students who spoke English as a second language. And I would give entry tasks when I came in the room. There were entry tasks. And my international students weren't getting them done because they were translating. I mean, they're getting advanced degrees in a second language. That is amazing. So I started using guided notes for those entry tasks to make it easier for folks to respond. This is a great way to increase attention and engagement, and you can do it in a variety of manners. Kids can write, they can draw a picture, right? They can snap something on, they can use their technology skills and snap a picture and put it in there. So this is one of those things, if you create guided notes as a grade level or for a certain lesson, then you can share those and you make the work a little bit easier. And again, some questions to guide that, the instructional pieces. I just copied and pasted this, obviously, from the brief Dr. Straparo, Dr. Neese, and Dr. McIntosh. But this is a series of questions we could ask ourselves and ask others to prompt the thinking and the planning around opportunities to respond. I want to see high rates of opportunities to respond in the classroom. I don't want a quiet classroom unless it's quiet time or they're taking a test, right? Engagement, right? Sit and get doesn't grow dendrites, right? What is it? If the butt's tired, the brain is too, or something like that. Okay, last one is performance feedback. I'm going to keep on going so that we make sure we get all of these slides finished. I think we're going to be good. I usually do it. Performance feedback. This is just saying, no, you're wrong. Yes, you're right. Right? That's it. That's it. Error correction is a process of reteaching. Discipline is always instructional. Discipline is instructional. So we reteach for academics, we reteach for social skills and social errors as well, even when we're really angry. And this is where that vulnerable decision points come in. So error correction is the process of stop. This is how we do it. And then opportunity response. Show me how to do it. Right? So stop, Sarah. Those are running feet. Can you please show me walking feet? And then you follow it with behavior specific praise. Sarah, those were amazing walking feet. Here's a bee bug. It is a magic teaching sandwich. It's a magic teaching sandwich. And active supervision is one of these in here, one of these strategies. I don't have it listed out fully. However, it is, if folks are having a hard time with classroom management, sometimes I'll look at that active supervision. But active supervision, that walking around allows us to do multiple things, right? Moving our bodies, we get to connect with kiddos and say, hey, Paulette, I'm so glad to see you today. Thanks for being here. Boom, elbow bump, right? It allows us to give praise. It allows us to do an error correction. It allows us to build relationships, right? So I don't want to see people sitting when I come visit the schools at recess time, everybody's huddled up in one corner, or when kids are learning, we're kind of sitting behind our desk. We're allowed to be tired. I get that. I'm pretty tired. And most of the time we want to be employing that active supervision. So performance feedback is immediate, okay? Especially at the beginning of skill acquisition and fluency building. It is precise, it is very specific. So kids know what was incorrect and how to correct it. Once kids and adults build fluency, that's when we get to say, what should we be doing, right? Right. But we match our level of teaching and the level of structure, if we will, that we provide to where folks are in their acquisition, right? Or where they are in their stress levels. Where they are in their stress levels. That is also one of those things that gets in the way, right? It's warm and encouraging. So We can feel stressed. And we then go, okay, I can do this, right? We have that neutralizing routine that it's if this happens, then I'm going to do this other thing, right? And we can predict it. We all can predict the naughtiness that will happen amongst our students and our adults. We can predict it. So we can build in a routine for ourselves to help slow ourselves down. We always plan for more positive feedback than corrective feedback. This is really important. Can someone write, this is just impromptu, somebody in the chat, tell me the dangers of excessive punishment. Someone please go ahead and put in the chat pod, what are some dangers of excessive punishment? Yes. Excellent. These are great. Yep. Boom. You all got it. We know that punishment increases the likelihood people will lie. They get very good at lying. It disconnects them from the learning environment. They're going to rebel, right? They feel unsafe, disconnected, unwelcome. Excellent. It also can build feelings of resentment, wanting to get revenge. So, and in some cases, like Vernon points out, we may be rewarding negative behavior, inadvertently rewarding. A kid learns that I get attention by being naughty, right? I got lots of attention for being naughty. I did. And then I got a job where I get to talk and people have to, they pretend to listen to me sometimes, but I turned it into something good. But lots of us will engage in negative behavior to get that thing that we're seeking, right? And for all my psychologists out there, we don't always understand why we want that thing, right? But this is what I want you to put aside. You can say as a teacher, as an educator, it doesn't make sense that the kid would like that thing. It doesn't make sense that Jessica would want teachers to yell at her. What is that? Behaviorism says if Jessica's getting access to attention through naughty behavior and people yell, if we want Jessica to stop that behavior, we change the context. We're going to take that away. We're going to feed what we want to grow, right? Feed what you want to grow. So when we provide that correction, remember, immediately you present the chance to practice again, immediately. This is default to reteach. I say this all the time. We do it in very dignified manner. We do it for our adults. We do it for our kiddos. We do it for our pets, right? We default to reteach. And that's the basic of how our MTSS systems, our data, that includes our data systems, our professional development, our coaching, our policies. That's how we want to default. We want to default to reteaching. And the more we know our kiddos, the more explicit and precise we can be, the higher levels of opportunity to respond. Ooh, we have this really brilliant combination of best practices. And it's not magic. There's no magic bean. It is a matter of shaping over time by providing a warm environment for that practice, right? There's no magic. So there's a few slides here for the questions for performance feedback you can take a look at and read through. These are great. If I was in charge of a district, which no one's let me be in charge of a district yet, if I was in charge of a district, I would be focusing really heavily on two things at the beginning of the school year. And one of them is getting to know your kids and that relationship building, right? Getting to know your kids. And then the other one is how we give performance feedback, particularly the dosage and the frequency of behavior-specific praise. So we're going to jump to behavior-specific praise. And then we have a few slides on error correction. This is protective. The ratio of 5 praise statements to 1 error correction is actually a protective factor in relationships. And some of you know where that comes from. If you know where that relationship research comes from, go ahead and drop it in the chat for me. I'm gonna do a little lip gloss because it is really, really dry outside. I know you know it. I know you're feeling the heat and the dryness. This 5-to-1 ratio is really important. It actually influences how we perceive a relationship. And it comes from research by the Gottman Institute, Gottman. It is a, put it in the chat. Follow their blog. follow them on Twitter and Facebook. They do research on relationships between partners. And this ratio of 5:1 is one of the things they can measure in interactions. And it's a contributing factor to the health of a relationship or the lack of health for a relationship. So there's a difference between behavior-specific praise and positive contact. Okay, difference between positive contact and behavior-specific praise. If you know the difference, go ahead and put it in the chat. I'm gonna do another slide and come back to it, give you time to think about it. But there's difference between positive contact and praise. So some words about praise and behavior-specific praise and tokens or coupons. Tokens and coupons are not the intervention. They're not the intervention. The intervention is the interaction. We say a kid or adult's name, the behavior that we appreciate, and a positive thing about it, right? Thank you so much for that thing. I really liked it. Tokens or coupons prompt the adult, and they also allow us to reinforce the same behavior multiple times to strengthen neurological pathways. So if I get a thank you, that's ding, that's a positive in the reinforcement system. I get a coupon, ding, that's another ding in the reinforcement system in our brain, the reward center, actually, I think is more precisely. And then if somehow my card gets pulled from a school-wide celebration, ding, that's another reinforcement, okay? So tokens or coupons allow us they prompt grown-ups. Sometimes schools will print out different colored coupons for the month so they can see about how many did we give out this month. I had a school that used to print them out with teachers' names on the back so they could get an idea for which grade level and teachers were giving them out or not. And then they would have their kiddos on the PBS team or their student government kind of tally the reinforcement tokens or the coupons, and then they could kind of look at those in relation to naughty behavior, right? The office referrals. So behavior-specific praise and positive contact. There we go. I don't know why I thought the fly-ins were a good idea. Positive contact, it's general non-specific statement. We all need it. We all need to feel seen and loved, right? And that's really important. And in addition to just saying, hi, it's nice to see you, thank you, we are specific with our praise to invite someone to repeat that behavior, right? So behavior-specific praise is a tool to provide reinforcement, bing, reward center, so that someone engages in that behavior again. It is genuine. It is genuine. It's one tool that we can use to build what we think of as intrinsic motivation, that internalized learning, okay? This slide has some examples and non-examples. We don't want to just throw tickets at people. If you have teachers, if you yourself maybe have done that, you're just passing out tickets and not telling kids why, that is not using the strategy accurately, okay? So we want to, like Paulette reminded us, we're going to focus on what we want to see. And this behavior-specific praise and different systems that go along with the praise, like the tokens or the coupons or the marbles in the jar or the stars on the board, those things help us dose up, pay more attention and more focus to what we want to see. And sometimes it's a matter of, instead of saying, oh, why did you do that thing? We ignore the thing that was naughty and we say, hey, I'm really glad you decided to sit down. And that's it. People will say, I can't give that kid 5 behavior-specific praise statements because they didn't do anything I should praise. Oh my goodness. So yeah, they were standing in front of you, or maybe they were sitting down, right? They looked at you. When folks run into that as a hang up and they don't know what to focus on, I had PBS teams that create little cheat sheets of things you can catch kids doing well, right? Because we know that our error correction is reteaching. And as soon as that reteaching is done, we have to say, thank you, you did a great job, I appreciate that. So error correction is always going to be that reteaching, that performance feedback, right? Performance feedback, reteaching. When we feel confident that the kiddo has had practice, they've shown us that they can do it, right? They've shown us that they can do it, and we feel like they're in a safe space to perform it. Then we get to add different things like planned ignoring, physical proximity. I use physical proximity all the time with grownups, and it works really well, right? And so this continuum of strategies is also located on the Midwest page. For your convenience, right here in the PowerPoint, there are definitions of these strategies. The big takeaway is that I want folks to use reteaching as a default, and then make sure that you then say, let me see that behavior, and great job on that behavior. Okay, so we have 4 minutes left. I'm going to point out, I'm going to put some URLs in the, here they are. Nope, this one. Okay, so here are some resources I lean on heavily. They're hyperlinked, but there's also the URLs are written out for you. I'm going to get out of full screen and put the PDF here in the chat for you. And I want to point out that on the Midwest page, there are these great resources called Snapshots, and it's different high leverage practices in a Word doc. You can download it and you can use them for self-assessment or walkthroughs. And also I want to point out that these strategies are included in all the different kind of teacher and principal walkthrough observations in the state of Washington. It links to Marzano, it links to Danielson. So there's a nice kind of completeness to this. So here we go. Nope, next one. There we go. Okay, last thing before I put things in the chat pod for you to download is Northwest PBS Network. I'm the executive director, and we have a bunch of really great stuff coming up. We have a whole host of free and for fee events, depending on clock hours. We have, so I want to encourage you to check it out because there's a lot of great stuff to help augment the work you've been doing and your learning. Also, I'm going to encourage you to put that, my mouse is not working well today. So here's our events page. Also want to encourage you to get, click into the PLC webinar series through OSPI. My team and I will be helping to present there. But these events coming up are awesome. They're going to be fun. They're going to help you with your clock hours, and the administrative series, the readiness for check and check out. There's an early childhood series, and the virtual coaches network meetings are free, as well as a series on educator wellness. So the educator wellness, we're working on the descriptions for those, but the dates are on our website. So I'm going to exit out of here. I'm actually going to stop sharing if I can figure it out. I'm doing it. Great. And as we get ready to transition to a break and then the next session, I want to see if folks had any questions or comments you wanted to share. And I'm going to see if I can put my stuff in the chat pod. Let's see if I can figure that out while you all do a little pondering here. Oh, excellent. Thank you so much, Tori, for that slide.
I just want to thank you, Jessica, for your time today and for your patience at the initial start of our session. I always feel like tech struggles are one of those things that can kind of throw me off initially when I'm stepping into something. So I appreciate you very much. So if you have any questions, please see the content on the slide right now. On behalf of OSPI, I just want to thank everyone who joined us today for being here. If you had a question that didn't get answered, or you know, that you maybe think of later, please feel free to email the addresses up there. Include your session name or presenter in the subject line. And you're going to email it at sissel@k12.wa.us. And so that way we can get your question answered. Sometimes those questions, at least for me, come up later as I'm thinking and processing. So I just want to thank everyone again. And then, you know, feel free to reach out with questions, and I hope you guys enjoy the rest of your session today with MTSS Fest.
Thank you. For folks who are asking about some of the other resources, the Midwest website is hyperlinked in the chat. And if you go to that classroom page, you'll find more than you bargained for maybe, but it's all very helpful. So thank you all. I appreciate it. Thank you, Cindy, and thank you, Tori, so much.
Thank you, everyone.